there, hi there. This is Brews in Business. My name is Damon Emerson. I'm here with the great
Scott Worden.
We are going to be sharing a little bit of knowledge, some information, and hopefully not bore-assing all of you with just who we are.
Yeah, it's going to be a slam dunk right here. Oh, Dad.
I've been this height since I was a freshman in high school, Scott, so I don't understand what slam dunks are. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for rubbing that one in. Is that good?
I don't know.
All right.
I got my cup of brew. How about you?
I got my cup of brew, Dutch Brothers.
So we've got our first sponsor, right? Dutch Brothers and Nerf. So Nerf hoops, if you don't remember.
Oh,
that is where it's all started.
That's right. So my name is Damon Emerson. I am 50 years old. I'm vice president of sales and client success and a co-founder of a company called StorSuite. I'm in the world of self-storage, which, yes, folks, is as exciting as it sounds. I've been in storage for over 18 years, and doing this is going to be kind of fun, just to kind of share some of the experiences that we've had just in life and business and everything.
I'm Scott Worden. I'm COO of StorSuite. I've been in storage for over a decade. I've done hardware, software on the sales side, and in different areas of the business. And I'm not going to say my age. I mean, I'm closer to 80 than I am to 21. So
what's today's topic?
From the locker room to the boardroom. For those that kind of watch sports and aren't participating, you always see the final product and what is on the field. But I think what gets really missed and some of the key things are all the things behind the scenes to get there.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think a lot of people know, but you have a very interesting background in sports.
My whole upbringing, my dad raised, and my mom raised 5 kids, but me and my brother were supposed to be the saviors of sports in our family, and we were supposed to be the meal ticket. My brother, who was so much better athlete than any of us, was the first to quote unquote let our dad down, as we were told. And then he put every effort into me that he could to try to get me to be to the next level. The problem was I was fortunate at a young age to be able to watch and see everything else that happened, that I knew what my path needed to be, and it had to be on my terms. And that's when I think what helped me in business today is, and I've talked about this often, is I've always been willing to take a punch, and I can, because I had to for most of my life. I'm able to take any amount of criticism because that's all I got. And that's not a woe is me, poor Damon thing. It's just, you learn to accept a few things in life, right? You either are going to allow yourself to be a failure and not succeed, or you realize you can learn from all that and be better. And I didn't choose violence, right? I chose to just keep taking punches and moving forward.
So what was the outlet? What was the sport?
So I played a lot of baseball, and I actually ended up playing more soccer because I was told that I was created to be a ball player. That was my dad's whole thing. Mm-hmm. Wasn't allowed to play high school ball. I tried out as a freshman, got cut, but I didn't get cut because I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the greatest tryout. I remember that, but I remember the coach saying, "Hey, are you related to Ralph Emerson?" And that was my dad. And I said, "Oh yeah, it's my pop and this and that." He goes, yeah, you're probably not going to be moving any farther. And come to find out, he had a love-hate relationship with my dad, because my dad was just my dad's a narcissist, or he was a narcissist. May he rest in peace. He changed over time as he got older, but yeah, and then my dad refused to let me play high school ball, so I did travel ball. We, played Babe Ruth, all those types of things, and then I ended up choosing soccer, which was the sport that actually helped me cope, because I knew that my dad hated that I played it. My dad never watched one game. And I excelled in the sport, and I loved it. I don't talk much about the soccer side of things because I'm honestly not a big soccer fan, but that's going to change now that I have a 6-year-old who wants to play soccer. So now I'm going to be an assistant coach.
Nice.
But that was kind of what changed for me and helped me to be a better athlete in general. Was I got to see different aspects of the sports world. And listen, I had a lot of success. but I also had a lot of failure, right? And I never once let failure, I have never quit, right? I've never let sports dictate who I was going to become. How about you?
You're very competitive. I know that for sure. So growing up, you always wanted to play just about anything, be outdoors. So I didn't know about you on the soccer side. Basketball was my passion. So I was the biggest Portland Trailblazer fan on the face of the earth. I loved basketball. I wanted to be a pro player. So I think eventually I realized I didn't have the skills and the athleticism, but I worked my ass off, worked hard to play because I wanted to be around it. So one thing I would share is I did take my basketball career to the pro level. So,
Which I love this.
but I didn't play. So I always tell people, my favorite position was left out, left behind. Growing up, I sat on the bench. So my dad was my coach. He actually was my mentor. He was a teacher. So I get my teaching aspects from my parents there. But I took my sports background and got into the business world starting in college. So that was kind of my first transition from sports to business. And I was a basketball manager at the University of Oregon. So I did that for 4 years. And I tell you, what an experience from that. So we talked about kind of the behind the scenes stuff, right? As people are fans are fanatics. They see like all the end result, but to get there, I think that's the part that people don't understand. And this is what happens in business too.
Well, I think it's why it took me a long time to realize that I was successful, right? I talk about, I didn't let failure define me in sports, but at the same time, like I was a head case. And my dad used to always call me a gamer because I would have terrible practices, right? And just get rode. Like he was just terrible, but it's how he was from a different age, right? It was a different era, right? So you learn that, well, okay, that's how you were back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, right? It's just the way it was. And I never allowed it to change my personality or my conviction to what I wanted to do. What ended sports really for me was the fact that I was a head case. What ended any opportunity with baseball was that when things went bad, I either was able to buckle down and move forward, or I would have my dad in the back of my head telling me every bad thing, and I would have let it just for a moment. And that's the one thing in sports, and especially from a baseball, as I found, is one little thing, if you let it take hold, then it will move fast and it becomes a domino effect. What I always found was it was always quick in, quick out, and then moments later I could find. The problem is the moments that it took to get there was already bygone, right? It was done. So when it came to business, I learned, you're going to take hits. You're probably going to have more failures than successes, but the successes you have are going to be 5 to 10 times bigger than any one failure. And that helped me. That helped me get through.
Well, and you have to have more at bats, right?
Yeah.
In order to be successful in business or in sports, you got to take a lot of reps.
Yes.
So practice.
Talk about practice,
man. Yeah. I know for me, again, I wasn't the most gifted athlete, and there is the mental aspect of it too, but I was laser focused. And I think some of the things you learn about me is very analytical. So I took a different path as far as like how I can give myself an edge by trying to improve in the deficiencies I had.
Yeah.
So one thing that really helped me out is also being on a team and learning to work with other people. I don't know, I shared, I was going to be an architect. That was going to be my goal.
That's amazing.
After realizing I couldn't be a pro athlete because I didn't have the skills or the height or a lot of the other things. But then I realized after kind of working as a team, I thought that being an architect, I was going to be more in a silo. And that was not going to be what I wanted to do. And I really like the social part of business. And relationships is a core of who I am. And I learned that in sports first and foremost. I had to trust my teammates.
Yep.
So I do have a rule where, hey, 90% of the time it's going to work in my favor. 10% of the time I can get burned. I'm going to focus on that 90%. If I focus on the 10%, I think that's where people fail. You got to focus on the positives and minimize some of the negative things.
I agree with that. I will always be my authentic self. You know, people like I catch you off guard like a lot where you're like, I can't believe you just said that. I was always loud. I always had an opinion. I always joked, very self-deprecating, but it's, you know, they're defense mechanisms. But at the same time, it's who I am, right? And am I always going to be appropriate? I'm going to try. But if I'm inappropriate, I'll also be the first one to apologize. I'm never, you know, stepping over the line to the point where I'm insulting. But like, I just think, you know, from a business standpoint, what has helped me is, and you know, it's even recently, we had a conversation with a group and they go, you know what, you are as advertised. And they were very, it was one of the greatest compliments. Like, I really took us forever to talk to you, Damon. You are as advertised. And I'm so happy that we got to talk. And, you know, and it's, to me, that is why we do what we do, but it's because of what we learned from a team aspect and what we learned. You know, everything I do has a sports mentality to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't fake it, right?
No.
So, you know, again, if you're not practicing, if you're not preparing, not doing things behind the scenes, it's going to show up. So if you're saying that you're authentic and you aren't, people are going to know.
Yeah.
And they're going to know. So you have developed an incredible reputation off of that authenticity.
Well, we both have. I think we've both been pretty fortunate with that.
Yeah. And people gravitate towards that, right? You don't have to be the best. Obviously, again, rode the pine, but you can be a great teammate and there's different ways that you can contribute on a team and, you know, basically be disciplined and focused on those things to participate on the team. And then, like, when you're saying that, hey, you're the first one to admit your faults. I learned that in sports. That's on me. And again, teaching and coaching, those things are what I love to do. And, you know, I look at, you know, my parents, again, were teachers. I felt that I always had that in me, and I could coach and I could do things on the business side because I love it. You know, the passion.
This has become very important to me as an adult now. Like, I've worked with kids, so everyone knows. My passion is baseball. I love baseball. I come from a baseball family. The head part of baseball is what I've tried to help. That's what I want to help kids with now, right? If I've worked with, you know, kids in junior high. I've worked with kids, you know, 11, 12, 13 years old. I worked with a couple high school kids, and everything I geared towards was, you know, what's between your ears, right? Here's why. Here's how you're going to cope, right? Yeah. Here's how you're gonna have this happen, and you're gonna think this, and you're gonna do. And the hope is that you tell them enough so that when that moment happens, they're gonna get frustrated. They're gonna go through the emotions, but they're gonna remember, right? And I incorporate that even when I'm doing sales, because I'm going to be the guy that's going to tell you what's going to happen, what's going to go wrong, but I'm going to tell you how you're going to see it differently. And hit after hit after hit, success after success after success, from a 7-year-old little kid to a 22-year-old young adult is what allowed me to see that. That's where you want to be in the world of business. That's why we're here today. I was told, hell, 12 years ago, I was told to my face, I was one of the top salespeople in our company, and I was told everyone has their place in life, Damon. Yours is just to be a salesperson. And I could have let that keep me down. And for about a year or two, I thought, well, I'll just be a salesperson. But what I didn't realize was I was allowing myself to be put into a very small box, and this is just what I was going to be. And one day I went, no, you know what? No. Right. And it shames me now because the other day I was like, man, I really know a lot about this. And I thought to myself, you've been in your industry 18 years. Of course, you know, right? Like, give yourself, grace, allow yourself to.
Well, you're also wanting to still learn.
Yes.
But same thing for me is you get painted in a box, and then our determination, our drive is like, look, we want to prove people wrong. These are the things, and those are the things that we learned in sports, right?
That's exactly
it. All goes back.
That's exactly it.
One thing so I coach my daughters when they're young.
I love that. Soccer
and basketball until all the parents started screaming, toe the line. I'm like, I don't know what that is. But the experience of that, what helped me is, one, it kept me more humble and just saw the innocence of a kid. And my goal always was I wanted them to learn some fundamentals and to love the game. And I told the parents, it's not just about winning. They couldn't even get the basketball over the hoop, and they progressively got better, but it's going to make it really humbling. So if you do end up coaching, you'll see that. But even as a fan or a parent, you take that perspective, you're going to love it. So I know we've talked about, again, sports and business, and you kind of see the correlation there. What would you say kind of maybe 3 takeaways that we could kind of leave the audience with, hopefully to get out of this?
When people ask to be able to share, one of the big things for me is, to be successful, you have to remember that it takes sacrifices, it takes dedication, and it takes a lot of hard work and failure, right? And you asked for 3, but like hard work and failure, I always believe kind of go together, because it doesn't mean if you put in hard work, you're going to have failure. But you have to understand, a Hall of Famer in baseball is a 300 average, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously many other things go into that. But, 7 out of 10 times you're going to get out, right? And I've been hearing that saying for 45 years of my life, right? But it's the truth, right? So if you want to be successful, what are you willing to put into it? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying, you're not going to have a happy life. You're not going to have a work-life balance. You're not going to have a happy marriage. Like, I'm not saying any of those things, but you have to be present and be putting in the time, right? And if you can understand that, then it's going to be there, right? You also need a little bit of luck. But you know what luck is? Luck is the amount of work that you put into it. It's not luck.
Yeah.
You've created that just by your habits. Yep. What about you?
So I have a saying where, and actually this is a quote in a picture frame on your desk, you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I love that. I love it.
And so obviously if you don't take a chance, you're never going to be successful.
Amen.
So
I agree with that.
With that, I think that kind of gives us a little wrap.
It gives us, this is our inaugural. We came out of the gates talking about success and failure. So we're going to see what people think about this, but I hope it gives people a little bit better idea and know that we're always here to talk, right?
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Cheers. Cheers.